But it was in Berlin, after all, that Humboldt was best known. His house in Orenburg Strauss was at, as we have said, in the neighborhood of the palace, to which he went daily when the king was in Berlin. All the inhabitants of the city, men, women, and children, knew his slender figure and white hair. He walked with a firm but slow step, with his head bent on his breast. His dress was a simple and a plain black suit, without ribbons or orders, and he had the Napoleonic habit of carrying his hands behind him. His eye was generally fixed on the ground, but he always noticed and returned the greeting of the citizens. He was as much at home in the street as his own private study for the passengers. I stepped softly aside for fear of disturbing his thoughts. The poorest working man gazed after him as he passed and whispered to his comrades or neighbor, "There goes Humboldt." Often in the summer twilight, the old man was seen wending his way to the beautiful avenue unto den Linden. A few minutes' walk from his house brought him to Frederick Strauss's and the bridge that crossed the Spree. A few minutes more to the Unter den Linden, which was covered with promenaders, up and down to the avenue of lime trees, now in shadow and now in sunshine. The figure of the old man moved his hands behind him, and his head drooping on his breast. Of what is he thinking as he walks there by the mellow twilight? Of Chimborazo and Cotopaxi, or the dreary wastes of Central Asia, or to the yet unwritten volumes of Cosmos. Perhaps he dreams of his early days, the far-off golden time when he was a boy at Tegel. Let the old man dream, ye gay promenaders. Disturb him not with your laughter, let him not hear your footsteps as you pass him. He has earned the right to dream, for his dreams are worlds. The only drawback to Humboldt's happiness in his last years was the flood of letters which poured in upon him. He had always corresponded largely with the scientific men in all parts of the world. He was glad to learn of their experiments and discoveries, and to communicate his own in return. And to be deluged as he was with letters in his latter days was intolerable. "I work," Humboldt wrote to his friend Julius Rubel in January 1858. "I work mostly in the night because I am unmercifully tormented with a constantly increasing correspondence, for the most part of not the slightest interest. I live joyless in my 89th year because of so much for which I have striven for my early youth. So little has been accomplished. Your illegible Al Humboldt." It was only of those who pestered him, however, autograph hunters, and the like, that Humboldt complained, not of scholars and savants, and least of all his friends. His pen was always in ready service of his purse, and been in former years, and would have still been had there been anything in it. Witness this letter to George Tickernor, the historian of Spanish literature. "My dear and excellent friend, bonds of friendship which have their origin so far back as my family, and the affection for you, my brother, William von Humboldt. When you lived in Germany as a young man seemed to impose on me the very pleasure, a duty of giving you some sign of life. That is to say, a renewed proof of my attachment to you and my interest in your country, and a brief account of my labors. My physical strength declines, but it declines slowly. My steps are more uncertain in the direction, owing to a feebleness of the ligaments of the knees. But I remain standing for an hour without being fatigued. I continue working especially at night, being unregularly persecuted by my correspondence, which increases the more as one becomes an object of public curiosity. What is called the literary celebrity is especially the result of long endurance of life. This kind of eminence increases, therefore, in proportion as imbecility becomes more manifest. I am never really ill, but often incommoded, as is to be expected at the age of 89. Since we were only 2 persons in the American expedition, the unfortunate Carlos de Montefiore, son of Marquis de Salvaguete of Quito, fell a victim to his love for the liberty of his country. It is somewhat remarkable that we should have both reached so advanced an age. Bonpland still much occupied with scientific labors, even cherishing the hope of visiting Europe again, and of bringing in person back to Paris his rich and beautiful collections in botany and geology. He is 85 years old, and enjoys greater strength than I do. I have published in Germany the 4th volume of Cosmos, and they are now printing the 5th volume, which completes the work so imprudently begun and so favorably received by the public. Jen Sabine writes me that the English translation is finished and will appear immediately. The same news comes to me from France from M. Galuzzi, who has been passing the winter in the south at Canaz. The great and beautiful work of Agrezis, the first 2 volumes, reached me only a few days since. It will produce a great effect by the breadth of its general views and by the extreme sagacity of its special embryological observations. I never believed that this illustrious man, who is no less of a man of a constant and beautiful nature, would accept the offers nobly made him in Paris. I was sure that the gratitude that would bind him to a new country where he finds a field so immense for his researches and great means of assistance. I hope he may be inclined, together with his great anatomical and physiological labors among the inferior organisms, to give us also the civic ichthyology of the numerous basins of the far west, beginning with the Holy Empire and the Mormons. Science has lately met with an immense loss here by the unexpected death of the greatest anatomist of our country, Professor Johann Mueller. This loss is of great for the science as was for the arts, the death of the immortal sculptor Rausch. The universality of his zoological knowledge and the inferior organizations placed Johann Mueller near Cuvier, having a great preeminence in the delicacy of his anatomical and physiological work. He made long and painful voyages at his expense on the shores of the Mediterranean and the northern seas. It is scarcely 2 years since he came near Pershing by shipwreck on the coast of Norway. He sustained himself by swimming for more than an hour, and considered himself quite lost when he was wonderfully rescued. I lose in him a friend who was very dear to me. He was a man of great talent, and at the same time, a noble character. He was admirable for the elevation and independence of his options. By making enormous sacrifices, he was able to form a choice library, not only of anatomy, physiology, and zoology, but one that extended all over from the physical sciences. It consists of more than 300,000 volumes, well bound, and of as so many more volumes containing dissertations so difficult to collect. Mr. Mueller spent nearly 800 thalers a year for binding alone. It would be sad to see a collection disposed and broken up which was made with so much care. Since duplicates are dreaded in Europe, I cannot help fearing lest the fine collection should cross the great Atlantic River. I have almost the air of exciting your appetite when I thus have present myself before you as a citizen of the world, while the Church Journal of Vienna calls me, in capital letters, a naturalist assassin of souls. Solin morder. Accept, I beg you, my dear and respected friend, the renewal of the high and affectionate consideration which for so many years I have given to your talents and to your character. A.V. Humboldt. Berlin, 9th of May, 1858. Since so many benevolent persons, colored as well as white, in the United States take an interest in me, it would be agreeable to me, my dear friend, if this letter, translated into English by you, would be printed without omitting what relates to our mutual friendship. If you think of it necessary that you could add me that I have begged myself of you of this publication, because I have leave unanswered so many letters that are addressed to me. The last page of the fifth and last volume of Cosmos was finished on the 14th of November, 1858. It was a happy day with Humboldt, for he had lived to finish his lifelong task. Besides, it was his birthday, his 89th birthday. His friends assembled at his house and congratulated him. Never, as an English correspondent did, Conqueror receive greater congratulations from so many persons, and from such great distances as the postboy had to carry on Tuesday morning to the well-known house in Orienberger Strasse. Humboldt, it is said to have been of the opinion that he will die next spring, but his friends who observe him speak differently, and are bold enough to predict that his time he is in error, and that it is a very difficult celebration, different celebration than that once he anticipates will next year take place in his house. Autumn passed and winter came, and still the old man lived. So far as his friends could see, there was no danger of his prediction being fulfilled. They would meet him on his 90th birthday, and banter him on his mistake. Yesterday, a young American wrote from Berlin on the 23rd of February, 1858. Yesterday was Washington's birthday, and celebrated it by a grand dinner at the American minister's government right. Some 80 or 90 persons were present, among them the Baron von Humboldt, whom we all reverence above any man living. I shall remember it until the last moment of my life, and it will be with pride that I can say that I was present upon the occasion in which he was honored the American nation, in his old age, with his presence at a dinner given in remembrance of the father of our country. The dinner was set at 3 o'clock, and everyone was already there a little before the hour. In order to be present when the Humboldt came, he entered the room precisely on time. He is a very short man, and quite infirm. It is with difficulty that he is able to walk. Of course, as soon as he was placed in his chair, the minister introduced the ladies and many of the gentlemen present. After a few minutes' conversation, the party adjourned to the dinner, and the devouring of cannibals took place after a short blessing from a clergyman. Government Right made the first speech and spoke of the occasion which had brought them together in a very elaborate manner, and gave us the first toast, the Prince and Princess of Prussia, and for the second, Washington's birthday. Next, the Secretary of Legation made a few remarks and gave a toast to which he coupled the names of Washington and Humboldt, which was drunk standing, and 3 lines rousing cheers given. After some other speeches and toasts were given, Mr. Thayer, correspondent of Wright's Journal of Music, gave the following, which I consider the best toast of the occasion. The Baron von Humboldt, the king of science, the latchet of whose shoes no common kings are worthy of unloosening. It was made a tremendous noise, and Humboldt spoke in answer, but his voice was too feeble, and his language so indistinct that I believe no one understood what he said. He remained 2 hours, and then left, as he can bear but little excitement. As his greatcoat was being put on, I was standing quite close to him, and seized the opportunity of touching his cape, which I honor enough for me.